Hey, so this is kind of a special week for me. If I had to remember right, this time, 25 years ago, me and Goliath and I, shoot me, had been together for, I believe it was a year. And this time, 25 years ago, she got a hotel. I mean, no, we rented a beach house at Point Pleasant, New Jersey. She rented the house for the family, her family, my family, and that kind of sealed the deal between us. That was kind of our. Uh, that was a good week. We spent the whole week together. Her family came up. Her mom, her dad, her sister, Steve came up, and I believe some of her cousins stayed for a day or whatnot. Went to the beach and had fun. Stayed at the house, and I had my own business. I had my own place to live. I was doing very, very well after 7 years being self-employed in my own business and doing really very, very well. Um, very successful. Something that my brother and I started out with on our own, and then he branched out. I branched out. But that this time, 25 years ago, things were amazing. I mean, things had went so well between us. Um, like I said before, when I first met Leo, he had the stitches and had recently had a second surgery. This After his second surgery, he got a little bit better, and then he had the third one. But by this time, we had been uh, camping up in the mountains together, just her and I, up at my favorite place, World's End State Park in Sullivan County, Pennsylvania, where I've been camping since I was like 10. Uh, So I took her camping. I've met all of her family, put satellite dishes in for all of her family so they could have their Italian stations. Um, so every single one of her family, majority of everybody got a satellite dish from me. I installed it at all their houses. Um, her aunts, her uncles, her cousins. So I knew all of her family. Uh, we had taken a trip down to Florida to visit my grandmom, my uncle, my aunt, uh, her and I, and my sister and brother-in-law. We all had gone down to, I believe it was May of that year, 25 years ago, um, to visit with my family. So she had met my family, I met her family. Things were going, you know, pretty well. But it was this weekend in particular for Josh's story to know that he was conceived in love uh, from two people who had good families. I had thought at the time, if I got to be completely honest, uh, her family loved me. I loved her family. That never changed for me. I still do. I always have. And at this point, I felt the same way about her, loved our life, loved how things were going, loved how everything was meshing. So this was the week that Just was conceived, and that was done, like I said, Point Pleasant, New Jersey. And my son needs to know the truth that I know of Goliath of a certain way, but this was the time, and I have to be honest and be truthful that things were well, things were good. There weren't any really red flags with me along the way. It wasn't until June 26, 2003, where things fell apart. But up until then, Josh was, he had his grandparents, he had my grandmom, he had his, his grandmom and grandfather and family. Because we all got along so well, I thought it was natural that the next step was when Josh came along, and and to me it was the best thing that ever happened in my life. Uh, Being an uncle, being helping out with daycare and widows and orphans and homeless people, leading up to that point in my life. Um, I had a good life. My business was doing very well, very, very well. I was hitting my over six figures a year for the first time, being 30 years old and only a high school education, and I'm in business and I'm making six figures, and things were good. Things were going very well. I finished the basement. No, no, that's when the basement. Shortly after that, the task to do the basement was put out there on the table. Um, but things had progressed. Things had evolved. I had done a lot of work on the house, and there was from here on out the work on the house that I did in the basement to finish it. The 50,000 I spent, and told I was going to get it back, but never did. That is what. But this point is about that Joshua has to know that he was loved. He is loved. He always has been loved. He was. I remember the day that he was conceived, and that to me is special because I know he was a gift the whole time, and I always treated him like a gift. I never took one for granted, and I always thought of him. Him and our relationship were very, very tight. Like I want to, I want to say it's more or less like a godly relationship because we always talked. We never fought. We never. I never had to raise my voice with him. Um, he was a good boy. So the fact that this marks the day of 25 years ago where he, this was the beginning of his life. This week, that was so special for me. It still is special to me. I mean, him and I, our relationship for the next 10, 11 years were solid. We were solid. And, to think that I had no idea that a year and a half later, a year and a half, was it a year and a half after that, he would be born in April. So the next year, she called my son a business. I had no idea while we were consummating our relationship that in the back of her mind, my son, whom I love, she called him a business at the Bucks County Courthouse. And to me, that kind of tells me where her mindset was always at in the beginning. But at the time when him and I, when he was conceived, that wasn't a part of it. None of that kind of talk was ever, you know, uh, I did everything I could do to avoid a fight, and that's why we never fought. We never fought. I knew Goliath in one way, and then I knew Goliath in a different way. I knew my son's mom, and then I knew somebody else. So up until this point, in this time, and back in that day, uh, he was born. He was conceived out of love, and that is my heart, and that is what I've been trying to reconnect with after all of these years. Which I understand. I don't know how else to use my words other than saying, "Hey, let's talk." And I've been saying that for how many years, but I still haven't been able to talk to him. Haven't been able to share with him, and I know that once we were able to reconnect, that everything would be fine. And there's a reason why he can't, and the parental alienation began uh, in June 26, 2003. That's when I no longer became a father. That's no longer when I became a person. That's when the good man that I was, or I am, always have been, the one person in the world found out that tried to make me out to be somebody I was never, and that's unfortunate for my son. And it's sad to think that 99.9% of the world that I've met in the 56 years I've been alive, um, that the percentage is that I'm well liked and admired, and I help people, and I love people, and I share with people, and I give to people, and that's who I am. So shortly after that, I don't know what changed, but it did. But more importantly, this is about Josh's day. This is about his week. This is about the time when things were good. This is about the times when things between us were I thought going in a great direction. It couldn't ask for anything more. I mean, all of our families got along. We all meshed. We all, you know, I love going over to families for Sunday dinners or weekend dinners or holiday dinners. I mean, I love the way her mom cooks. I love the way she cooks. I asked her to show me things. I try to learn how to uh, the way that they cook. Being from Palermo and Sicily, you know, I take those things. I wanted my son to learn Italian. I love this family. To think that anybody would ever think anything differently about my heart when I speak to these messages is that my heart is for my son. And this is a special week for me, and I hope it's a special week for him. And I hope that at some point we can come to terms and have a conversation or two, and just see what happens.